Over 100 years ago, the creatures suddenly mutated and massacred humans. The dead also turned into mutants and attacked other humans. Subsequently, the situation spiraled out of control, and the entire world became a purgatory. During the battle, individuals awakened with powerful talents emerged, repeatedly repelling the mutants. By the year 2145, global mutants suddenly gathered into an army and surrounded humanity at its last line of defense. The monsters were constantly killing humans until they reached the capital of China, the final battlefield. 3 high-level awakened individuals prepared to fight. The Heavy Hammer commented that all first and second level awakened ones were dead, and that if it continued like this, third level ones would also not withstand the situation. The archer noticed the monster approaching and told everyone to get ready. However, the tentacles moved at full speed and grabbed all 3, throwing them into despair as they struggled to free themselves. The girl shouted that the saliva of the third-order mutant was sealing their psychic energy, and that it seemed there was nothing they could do. The monster, with its many mouths, prepared to devour them, and everyone was terrified, knowing it was over. Suddenly, several slashes appeared in the air, shredding the monster. They were left confused, not understanding what had happened, until they fell to the ground along with the monster's remains. Only then did they go on alert upon seeing a new, awakened individual standing before them. They shouted for Yenning, the strongest divine talent. He told the group to stay vigilant, and they all thanked him for being there and saving them. Suddenly, he noticed a presence, and the archer prepared his bow, saying there were also mutants directly above the master's head. The MC looked up and saw a species they had never encountered before, as it was completely different. The Heavy Hammer charged forward, asking how it dared to stand above their master's head, and then the archer joined him, both attacking at the same time. The colossal monster simply turned its head, and its giant eye shone brighter, landing a direct hit on both of them, killing them with a single attack, leaving only their weapons flying through the air. The girl, shocked by what she saw, prepared her firepower and screamed that she would take care of the damn creature. However, the monster, moving at high speed, appeared behind her and attacked simultaneously. She realized there wasn't enough time to react and simply closed her eyes. Then she opened them again and was surprised to see Yenning blocking the attack. He realized it wasn't a third-level mutant, since it managed to kill 2 of the best third-level awakened ones with a single blow. For that reason, he told her to leave, as he would handle the monster alone. The girl, terrified, was aware that in a battle of that level, she would only hinder her master, so she ran away, asking him to be careful. Then the mutant increased the strength of its attack, breaking the MC's sword in half and causing the blade to fall to the ground. He couldn't believe that his sword had been so easily broken, and thought the monster was something the military had attempted to create countless times and should exist only in theory. That was a level 4 mutant. Yenning prepared himself, knowing he needed to fight with all his strength to have even a slight chance. So he leaped and charged at the mutant at full speed, landing a direct hit and causing a wind explosion at the site, followed by another explosion caused by his blade's power. The MC was shocked, staring at the monster, as one of its strikes had actually hit his chest. The mutant withdrew its arm, and Yenning dropped his sword, falling to the ground shortly after. He, powerless, thought about how a 4th-level mutant could be like this, and concluded that for humanity, it was far too fragile when facing such a monster. The monster prepared its tentacles and moved toward him, who was slowly closing his eyes as he appeared to be dying, and unfortunately, couldn't protect the world. After all, he was standing before a catastrophe. Meanwhile, at the headquarters, the commander is terrified since the only hope in the Chinese war zone, the divine talent Yenning, has apparently been defeated. This makes him question how long they can maintain this offensive. At this moment, all he can think is that if it had been possible to discover Yenning earlier and give him more time to grow, maybe this nightmare would have had a different outcome. He thinks about this and bangs on the computers, since he cannot imagine a solution. After all, now everyone will die together. Then he announces on the microphone that all defense lines in that region have been lost, and, therefore, third-level awakeners have permission to load the nuclear warheads to their maximum. Since this will probably be the end, at least they need to die with dignity. With this order, the Awakeners jump from the aircraft holding nuclear bombs and head toward where the monsters are gathered. The superiors salute, and the explosions begin, destroying each area of the large city and consequently the entire world. After all these events, the MC opens his eyes, hearing a voice coming from a news report about an evacuation. He gets up, feeling a strong headache, but does not understand since, as far as he knows, he was defeated. At this moment, someone opens the cell, asking if the guy is awake. Another says there are rumors that the boy could not take the test, saying he was unconscious because of the virus, and that's why he is outside doing the exams. The two enter and ask to finish him off already since the money has already been collected. They also say that in the end, he is just a normal human and not a descendant of the Awakened. They say this and approach with their weapon. The MC is scared by what they are saying since this story about the test happened 3 years ago, and apparently he has been reborn and returned 3 years earlier to the day he took the talent test. He also remembers he failed this test because someone had manipulated it. Immediately, he goes toward the weapon since he cannot let something like this happen again and tells them to go ahead. Disarming one of the guards, he throws him off balance and lands another punch. The soldier spits while Yenning manages to grab the weapon and now has it pointed at the other guard. After knocking them both out, he reflects that, in his past life, he couldn't pass the test and had to spend 3 years gathering corpses before the military discovered his divine talent. However, at that time, the Chinese war zone had already fallen, so he didn't have the time or resources to grow. He leaves the room, thinking it took him only 7 months to reach the 3rd level, and only then did he face that 4th level mutant, regretting that, unfortunately, he couldn't save his mother and sister from the disaster. But now, he is confident since he apparently got a new chance, and if he passes the test, he can become much stronger, putting an end to the apocalypse that will eventually happen. While walking, a screen appears, informing him that the god of the final judgment sword system has been linked to Yenning. His mission is to touch the test crystal within 30 minutes to unlock and activate the system's functions. If he does not touch the crystal in time, the system will disappear after 31 minutes. Another mission appears simultaneously, stating that after completing the system unlocking mission, any of his sword skills will be increased 100 times and will evolve into a forbidden sword skill. He is surprised to see this, since it is a completely different system from the last awakening, where everyone was the same, and it is the first time he has seen something like this. He imagines it may have changed due to the rebirth, but since he wants to get stronger, he doesn't care what system he has as long as he can achieve his goal. But he is aware that he needs to start this trial quickly, since the 31-minute countdown has begun. At this moment, a small battalion approaches, asking who the guy is and ordering him to raise his hands. They surround him and warn that an infected person has escaped. The MC observes everyone around him and quickly identifies that the leader is a low-level awakened, while the others are ordinary people. He looks to the side since the best solution at the moment is to keep the leader close and force him to help. With that in mind, he draws his weapon, which was hidden, and shoots the leader's weapon. Then, he moves at high speed and stops behind him. The soldier is startled since he now has a gun pointed at his head. Yenning warns him not to move, and if he does, he will be shot. Then, he orders the others to take him to the testing site and gives them only 3 seconds to decide. If they make any move, their captain will die. The guards ask if he's crazy, while the leader says it's madness for an ordinary person to take the test. However, the MC cocks the gun, scaring him even more. He still tells them to stay calm and at least try to awaken, warning that regardless of whether they succeed or not, they won't escape death. Meanwhile, in the testing area, several people are gathered, and it is announced that a century ago, the end of the world arrived in 2042. The world entered an era of catastrophe. That was when the awakened ones of the first generation appeared and joined military forces to save China. On that day, it will be determined if the applicants have talent. If they succeed, they will be able to protect humanity as awakened ones, and if they fail, they will simply leave to live a mediocre life. Liaoshan, who is a representative of the military commission, announces that they will start with the descendants of the awakened ones. All the candidates line up and begin entering the arena. At that moment, the military radio informs them that an infected person has taken a guard hostage and entered the testing site. Everyone becomes apprehensive upon hearing this news until, at the entrance, the guards notice something, but they are quickly defeated and thrown inside. The MC appears with the leader as a hostage, forcing everyone to back off. Liaoshan announces over the loudspeaker for the MC to lower the gun and give up this resistance. The soldiers draw their weapons and prepare for combat, while the MC continues entering with the gun pointed at the hostage's head. He then says he is not infected and does not want to interrupt the awakening ceremony, as he is only there to take the test. The representative, irritated, shouts for them to arrest him at once, and all the guards rush forward. At that moment, the MC drops his weapon and states that according to Article 137 of the Safe Zone Regulations, awakened ones have special rights, and violating military orders is a serious crime. However, significant contributions can cancel such offenses. The soldier who was being held hostage becomes enraged and punches him in the face, asking if he thinks he's special or something. He falls to the ground, and everyone rushes at him, finding it absurd to mention this article at a time like this. The representative shouts for them to execute him immediately, and one of the soldiers raises his sword to follow the order. However, an aircraft appears at the site, causing the soldiers to question why a fighter jet is there. A man jumps from the aircraft and lands with force on the ground, causing a massive impact in the arena. One of the soldiers immediately feels immense pressure and doesn't understand why a marshal is there when the test hasn't even started. This is Xiao Hai, Supreme Commander and Marshal of the Army. He figures that the Army badly needs a high-level awakened one, and since the boy is willing to risk his life, he thinks he should take the test. But if he's not awakened, he orders the soldiers to execute him immediately. Yening smiles and asks them to arrange the test right away. Because of this, the soldiers are dismissed, even though they don't understand why permission is being given for an ordinary person to take the test. The other candidates simply observe, as the idea of a commoner becoming an awakened one is absurd. The MC reaches the testing site and thinks that in his past life, he was manipulated and therefore failed the exam. After that, it was one mistake after another. However, this time, he will control his own destiny. He thinks about this, raising his hand and heading toward the monolith. When touched, a strong purple glow emerges. Then, a powerful aura begins to overflow in the area, leaving both the commander and the representative surprised, as well as the audience present, since the glow becomes increasingly intense. Yening imagines that the sensation is very familiar, so he decides to try. The test system announces that it is performing the level verification, starting at level D, then it jumps to level C. In the same second, it goes to level B. Seeing this leaves Liaoshan shocked, as the level increases every second, and he cannot believe that the boy truly has a high-level talent. Then, the test system announces that the current talent is at level A. The MC notices that spiritual energy is filling his organs, and this was incredible. But with a frightening expression, he says that the crystal can withstand even more spiritual energy. Because of this, he inputs even more power, causing an even brighter glow to overflow from the crystal. The representative asks if a commoner is really Class A, as the chances of something like this happening are ridiculously small, around 1 in 10 million. The commander is also surprised, even more so because the test has not yet ended, which means the talent might be greater than Class A. The pressure on the crystal grows increasingly intense, and the MC remains firm, channeling more and more power while holding the crystal. Everyone present is stunned, as Yening's aura is on another level at that moment. The power emanating from the crystal is so immense that it reaches the sky, and the test system announces that the current talent is at level S. The pressure and glow around are so strong that the audience cannot look properly. Xiao Hai cannot believe what he is seeing, as the crystal has not yet given the final score, even though it is already at Class S. Immediately, he grabs his tablet as he needs to deploy armed ground troops for defense. After all, the power was too intense in the test area, so he orders the sealing of the upper airspace. The MC keeps shouting as energy overflows from his body, and the aircraft try to approach, but the winds are so strong that they push them back as the power is creating multiple wind waves throughout the arena. After a while, the MC's power subsides, and the test system announces that it has been completed. The audience is speechless, just like the soldiers in the area. They stand before the MC, unable to believe what they are witnessing. The commander drops his tablet in shock, as he is in the presence of a pureblood of level SS. He imagines that if a level SS truly awakened, it could become a third-order warrior, and apparently, all of Tianfeng will undergo a sweeping transformation. Then, he bursts into laughter, as the city managed to produce such a talent. The people around cannot believe that the Great Marshal is praising someone. The MC observes the power in his body and imagines that his talent is theoretically the highest level of humanity, something at level SS. And he did not expect the crystal's limit to be only level SS. However, he does not care about the influence of this, as rank SS is already sufficient, although his interest now lies in the mission of the God of Swords system. He asks the system to show the panel, and his status appears. His name is Yening, and his current effect increases the power of the ability by 1,000%. After learning any sword skill, that skill is unconditionally upgraded to the SSS level. First, additional effect. It increases the psychic energy stock by 10,000% and unlocks the limits of all attributes. Now, he can maximize any attribute without being restricted by talent. Second additional effect, every 48 hours, he can use an ability without any cost, regardless of the level. The MC feels relieved since the mission is accomplished. Only then does he realize something strange, as in his past life, even with the entire country's effort, they could only gather 2 S-level abilities and 1 A-level ability. However, the new system can easily upgrade abilities to the SSS level. Then the details of the new mission arrive, asking him to learn a skill as quickly as possible, and the reward will be 4 free attribute points. There is also an important warning asking him not to reveal information about the system to the outside world, and violators will be eradicated. Yening finds all of this very interesting, and now he just needs to find a skill book. At this moment, the Supreme Commander approaches, congratulating the MC for achieving an SS rank. He also asks what reward he would like to receive, as the superiors are certainly pleased with this discovery. However, the commander finds it strange that Yening does not respond, but he doesn't know that it is because the boy is focused on the system. Therefore, he believes that the MC must not have an answer yet because he is not used to being an awakened one. Thinking this, he smiles and hugs the MC, saying that in his past, he too was dazed for a long time until the realization hit, but he asked them to go to the office, as they need to have an appropriate conversation. A drink is served for both, and the commander explains that the failure in Yening's previous tests was clearly unjust, and for this reason, there will be a thorough investigation. He also warns that as soon as the superiors confirm someone from the Third Order, that person will be assigned to guide him, providing access to resources and proper equipment. He asks them to discuss the talent the MC possesses to help with the planning. The MC becomes thoughtful as he cannot reveal the system of the God of the Sword, so he must only maintain his original talent. With that in mind, he responds that his talents are mental series, and the effect is telekinesis. Xiao Hai becomes thoughtful about this talent, as it is quite rare, and specialists from the capital will be needed to give advice. He asks again what reward the MC would like. The MC replies that, if possible, he would like a swordsmanship skill book. The commander responds that this is easy and turns to ask a subordinate to fetch the highest level book they have. The soldier returns, informing him that the book in his hands is the highest level one they have in the materials reserve, and with that, he hands it to Yening. The MC thanks him and says he would like to go home if there is nothing else to discuss. The commander notices his urgency, thinking that he wants to share the good news with his family, but he informs him that they have assigned elite soldiers to follow him 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. to ensure his complete safety. If any confusion arises, he is to report it to him. Additionally, he makes it clear that regarding Yenning almost failing the qualification test, he wants a detailed report on it in 24 hours, and no matter who is involved, he wants to see that person in jail. All the subordinates bow, saying they understand the orders. After that, the MC, accompanied by the escort, goes to the 6th refuge in the safe zone, where he lives. The Jeep parks, and the MC exits. He also tells the security to stay there, as he can walk alone to his house. People observing this ask if Yenning has become an important person, as he appeared in the neighborhood in a military vehicle. While the MC walks, he notices that his younger sister is right ahead and calls her. She turns around, asking if it's her brother standing there. At the same moment, he remembers that he couldn't protect her in the past apocalypse, runs toward her, gives her a hug, and apologizes in his thoughts for not being able to protect her from the apocalypse. He promises that in this life, he won't let her get a single scratch. The girl doesn't understand the sudden hug and says that apparently it's been a year since he went to the training camp and asks how he did. Yenning, with tears in his eyes, tells her that he passed the test. She congratulates him and asks why he's crying. He responds that it's nothing and that he was just happy to see her. They head home since his sister mentioned that their mother has been quite worried because she hasn't seen him in a long time. She also shows a bag, explaining that she found some extra components and can exchange them for some pancakes for them to eat well. The MC informs her that, actually, there will be a big celebration banquet, including meat, and she can eat as much as she wants. Hearing this makes the little girl happy. When they arrive home, a big banquet is prepared, and Yenning's mother asks how things are going with the awakening, and mentions that many neighbors have been asking about it. He happily informs her that he passed the test and is now unawakened. His mother feels proud, as it was what he wanted most. His little sister also celebrates, saying that she expected nothing less from her older brother and that he truly is her pride. Asking if this means they'll be able to have good meals every day, he answers yes. After dinner, they place the dishes in the sink and go to bed. Yenning looks at his family lying down, happy to see them again. He closes the door and opens the system to continue with the skill book learning. Since the mission was completed, 4 free attribute points were granted. The detected skill was the rank C impulse. It was then successfully upgraded. Now the impulse skill was upgraded to rank SS, becoming the Storm Sword. The weapon forms in his hand. The system informs him that the Storm Sword consumes 4,500 psychic energy points to summon a sword torrent of chi, dealing devastating damage in a specific area in a short period of time. The skill includes super speed, armor penetration, among others. The destructive power was also increased by 10,000%. He doesn't hide his astonishment, as a rank C skill was immediately upgraded to rank SSS. And even with his long experience from his past life, he had never seen something so absurd. He sits down to analyze all of this, as the energy cost is 4,500, and he realizes that his reserve is only 1,500. In the first tier, the maximum determination is 20 points, and the energy reserve is 2,000 points. In the second tier, it's 30 points of determination and 3,000 energy. Lastly, in the third tier, it's 40 points of determination and 4,000 psychic energy points. Seeing all of this, he imagines that, without counting equipment bonuses, he will need to be at least in the third tier to use the Storm Sword. But fortunately, one of his talent traits is use a skill freely every 48 hours, and that will help a lot because it will allow him to use something he technically couldn't due to energy limitations. However, what's complicated is not being able to reveal the system of the God of the Sword, so it will be hard to explain to others where these absurd abilities are coming from. So, before advancing to the second tier, he can't use the Storm Sword in front of anyone. He knows that he still has the report that the commander requested, so it's better to avoid trouble. He observes the power in his hand and thinks that this skill is something he never experienced in his past life, and that's why he's eager to see it in action until he remembers something. Since in the army zone, there's a certain thing, some explanations about this world. The apocalypse happened, and thus, The world was impregnated with spiritual IQ. Several random dungeons began to appear everywhere. Awakened individuals delved into their realms, conducting explorations and research. Information about the dungeons was greatly mastered by humanity, especially the military, which spent colossal resources researching and developing test dungeons for real combat training for their troops. Compared to naturally occurring dungeons, a person could leave the test dungeons as soon as they encountered a fatal danger, greatly increasing safety. Thinking about all of this, the MC leaves his house and wonders if he should try using the Storm Sword ability in this test dungeon. He goes to this location in the safe zone of Tianfeng and, upon positioning himself at the machine, asks for a solo low-level dungeon of any type to be opened. The person in charge of the place immediately recognizes that this is Yening, who obtained a mental talent of rank SS, and remembers that the commander allowed access to any dungeon for this person, but still asks if he is going alone, and if, by any chance, someone should accompany him. He warns that, with his current strength, this dungeon is very dangerous, but the MC asks him to relax since he is just going to test something and will return afterward, disappearing shortly after. He reappears already inside the dungeon. The current scenario is a city, and the danger level is low. He imagines that this simulation is of a dungeon shortly after the outbreak of the apocalypse. He also notices that the weapon provided by the dungeon is a dagger. Therefore, he grabs the weapon and takes it out, feeling pleased since the weaker the weapon, the easier it will be to test the ability. He barely starts walking when a monster appears. He immediately notices since the monster didn't waste time and went straight for the attack. Yening jumps and lands a kick. He prepares to strike since a mutant appeared so quickly, wanting to score free points. He thinks this, landing a blow that finishes the monster with just one hit. He realized that the dagger worked quite well, and because of this, his hunt will begin. He goes to a door and opens it. A monster is already on the other side and tries to devour him. When it gets close to do so, the MC strikes his dagger straight into its mouth, finishing yet another monster. He notices that his physical strength is currently very low, but his combat experience from his past life is proving quite useful since he is managing to deal with even stronger monsters with ease. But to use his special ability, he would need to find the boss first. He goes to a staircase to leave the building and imagines that the boss area is right after the shopping street. After leaving the building, he notices the presence of several zombies that have evolved to the intermediate level of the First Order, so the dungeon is becoming more intense. He imagines that he doesn't need to waste time with these monsters, but as he says this, the zombies notice his presence and prepare to attack. Yening starts running, as his sole objective is the boss, and manages to get past the zombies, gaining some distance from them. The monsters don't give up and start chasing him. The MC keeps running, frightened that the number of zombies keeps growing, and runs toward a fire truck, lamenting that it won't matter how many zombies he kills since he won't gain additional experience points from it. He stays watching from the top of the truck since, to reach the boss, he will have to get rid of these monsters and, therefore, jumps back to the ground to kill them all. After doing this, a notification pops up saying he has reached the boss area. He stands still, waiting, looking around until the boss shows up. The system alerts him that it is a mutant at the peak of the First Order. A devourer corpse is approaching. He is startled since the giant boss arrived at high speed. He jumps, dodging the first attack, and lands back on the ground. Yening is aware that dealing with a mutant at the peak of the First Order would require at least 3 awakened individuals of the same order. He also knows that if this weren't a test, even with his celestial abilities, he wouldn't be able to handle the current boss with his stats, especially with hundreds of zombies around. He continues dodging all attacks and runs under the monster's arm, then jumps, positioning himself high above the boss's head. He doesn't care about how embarrassing it will be, but he needs to leave the dungeon, so he uses his new special ability, delivering a powerful electric attack that devours the boss, causing a colossal destruction in the entire area below him. The dust begins to settle, and the MC admits he's surprised, as he can't believe that all that destruction was caused by a single blow. and never imagined this destructive power if he hadn't conducted this test. He begins to reflect that this power would probably defeat even the weakest mutant at the peak of the second order instantly, and that makes him happy since, even though he's not even level 1, he possesses this destructive power. Suddenly, the system appears, informing him that he defeated a mutant at the peak of the first order, and, as a result, earned 6 psychic experience points, with a 50% deduction for being in a dungeon built by humans. He notices that he gained a glove and can't believe it. As in his past life, he never heard of anyone obtaining an item from the test dungeon. The equipment increases agility by 1, and the hand speed and stability for firing were increased by 15%. He's surprised by this item since a normal second order awakened wouldn't even have a full set of white equipment, and he's already started gathering them. Since his objective was achieved, he sees no need to continue in the dungeon, so he teleports back. Upon returning, he hands the item back and thanks for the permission to enter the dungeon. The man is surprised to see that he returned so quickly, deducing that he got scared by the horde of zombies and left. At that moment, someone calls for the employee. An old man asks why he let a bunch of random people into the dungeon and warns that dungeon maintenance is difficult, so it wasn't supposed to have let a bunch of people in. The employee, not understanding anything, informs that no squad entered the dungeon. The boss of the place doesn't understand this and asks how the hell no squad entered when the first order mutant in the dungeon died. They check their system and see that even a unique item was dropped, saying that it's not like a second order awakened would bother with the test. The employee is terrified, as the only person who entered the dungeon was Yening, who was only going to do a test, making him wonder if his test was to solo the dungeon boss. After returning to the community, he passes by a place where they are selling weapons in exchange for wheat. They're also selling food like fried praying mantis. As he walks, he imagines that he can easily take down first order mutants, but the situation is still far from being good. At that moment, a boy shouts that the police are coming. The soldiers appear running, shouting for everyone to keep an eye on the children. Seeing all of this makes the MC start to remember the disaster from a year ago. The safety zone of Tianfeng would be reduced to ashes and infested with corpses under the advance of the massive number of third-order mutants. He still remembers that in just 10 days, the old district of the city will witness a zombie outbreak, thus posing an extreme threat. In other words, this means that both his mother and his sister are in danger. This only motivates him to get even stronger. Meanwhile, at the army's headquarters, they are watching the newest SS rank talent, a pure blood with a mental attribute. They're having a meeting, and the general says that with the loss of several third-order members, it's good to know that a great talent has emerged among them. Another superior asks them to accelerate the training of this boy, allocating whatever resources are necessary for that. The mustached man asks if they are suggesting the solution to advance from the third to the fourth order, the famous insurmountable gap. A commander makes it clear that many high-order awakened beings, such as the 4 great commanders, and even the peaks of the third order, just couldn't advance due to a lack of resources. The mustached man thinks this is a good idea, as starting to invest early on could be a smart move. The colonel asks for Yening to be immediately taken to the military capital. One of the superiors says he opposes this decision, leaving everyone confused about why. The colonel also asks why that is. The Four Eyes asks if they, by any chance, didn't read the last part of the report, warning that the boy is a mental attribute awakener, and that in 70 years since the beginning of the records, there hasn't been a third-order mentalist. He further explains that mental awakeners usually have weaker psychic constitutions and typically have support roles. So, going into combat alone, without the support of other awakeners, is suicide, and he emphasizes that everyone there already knows that advancing from the first to the second order is a huge risk, and the success rate of advancing from the second order to the third is exactly 0%. The general remains silent for a moment and asks to forget what he said, ordering that Yening's priority be reduced since resources are too precious to waste. The next day, the great commander receives this information and is surprised, as the superiors have reduced all the resources allocated to Yening. considering him without the potential to reach the third order. His subordinate asks how they will proceed, since they had initially planned several benefits. He sits down and asks for all of it to be canceled, since the superiors consider him someone without potential, also requesting that the security personnel he had sent be called back. Additionally, he asks for the investigation to be canceled, as it was initially conducted because they saw potential, but now there is no need for it. Meanwhile, the soldiers pass this information to the MC that the capital's specialists will limit his potential to the second order, and because of this, all benefits, such as joining the Awakening program, will be revoked. They leave, leaving the MC thoughtful, as it is insane for them to think his potential is limited to the second order, as he is someone of rank SS, even though the crystal can only show SS. After reflecting for a bit, he comes to a conclusion. He imagines that, at this moment, mentalist awakeners are still largely considered useless, and the theory that awakeners cannot advance to the fourth order because their attributes are insufficient is still unknown to everyone. He imagines that, unexpectedly, in this new life, there are many surprises, like the superiors not recognizing his value, and he wonders if he should reveal his SSS status to the capital and show his potential to reach the fourth order. He thinks about it, but quickly changes his mind, since no one will believe his words, and he just needs to find a way to reach the third order on his own, as that will solve everything by itself. He continues walking, since now he has the God of the Sword system, in addition to already having the Storm Sword skill, so his starting point is far better than in his past life, and because of this, he needs to hunt mutants. He heads into the wild forest, and on the way, a group calls him, saying they are going to hunt level 1 monsters, and if he joins the group, they can share the resources. Yenning asks how this is an advantage, as a level 1 mutant already has low experience, and if it is divided, no one will get anything, so he thanks them for the offer, but declines. The group calls him arrogant, saying they were just trying to lend a hand, and even so, he showed no gratitude, and the three surround him, saying they were just offering a kindness, but asking if he was, by any chance, looking for trouble. The MC, with a frightening expression, tells them to get lost. The man is terrified by that gaze, as it feels like a beast is staring at him, and they think it was the expression of someone who has been on the brink of death several times. But they don't understand how something like that is possible. Yenning just continues on his way without being bothered. While walking, he thinks that he is in the forest that decomposes corpses, and it is definitely a dangerous place. As far as he remembers, there should be 2 level 1 mutants, with one of them being at the peak of the first level. He looks at the system and thinks that he knows that to advance to the first order, he needs to kill 3 level 1 mutants. His first was the monster from the testing area, and although the experience he gained was reduced, it was still a mutant at level 1. While he was deep in thought, he sensed a presence approaching, so he grabbed his weapon, as moments later a mutant jumped in his direction. He attacks with his weapon as if it were a sword, and soon after, several other monsters appear, and he begins running, shooting at the heads of all the zombies. Aware that awakened mentalists have weak psychic constitutions, he needs to change the stereotype in the minds of those above him. Not only that, but he needs to change the mindset of all third-order awakened ones regarding mentalists, or it will be too late when fourth-order mutants appear. As time passes, a loud noise is made in the forest, catching the attention of the group, who ask if they heard gunshots and deduce it must be the person from earlier. The team leader orders them to run, as they cannot afford to be killed by the boy before finding the physical fruit. At this moment, the MC continues battling. The system informs that this is the mutant at the peak of level 1, the demonic tree. He repositions himself and receives another alert that another demonic tree has joined the battle, making him think that now he will have to deal with both at once. He says this while looking at a colossal tree, but he doesn't see the other one. The mutant in front of him lets out a loud scream, but the MC can't understand what's happening, as he can only see and feel one monster and has no idea where the other one is that the system notified. In other words, something is wrong. The mutant's vines begin to attack, aiming directly at him. Yenning notices that they're fast, so he starts running, dodging all the attacks, until he repositions himself. When he looks back, he's confused, as he doesn't understand where the monster went until he gets startled by something coming from above. It was the monster, who attacks the ground with all its might, causing a powerful explosion on impact. But he manages to dodge at the last second, repositioning himself while thinking if something that big could really jump that high. Besides that, he's worried since the second monster hasn't appeared yet, and considers the possibility that it's hiding to make a stealth attack. The demonic tree doesn't waste time and makes a move, forcing the MC to grab his weapon, as he won't have time to dodge, and he realizes that he has no choice but to face it head-on, attacking the vine with the machine gun like a sword. At this moment, something appears near the monster's mouth, making the MC startled as he takes a closer look at what it is. Because of this small distraction, he takes a direct blow to the arm, throwing him to the side. He can only think that he didn't see wrong, as in his past life, the demon of the tree and the entangler were defeated by an elite military squad as a supreme evil. He always thought the other monster lived in hiding to make a stealth attack, but apparently, the answer had always been right in front of him, as the entangler was with the demon of the tree. Yenning begins to understand better, as apparently, the entangler's roar acts as an energy buff for the demon of the tree, but apparently, the duration is short, and when the buff is renewed, the mutant takes a step back. He grabs his machete, as the monster's attack pattern remains the same, and, if he's not mistaken, the mutant will jump at him again. He says this, and sees the attack coming his way, hitting the ground once again with all its might. The MC, besides dodging, starts running along the vine, now aiming at the entangler. He leaps with all his strength, charging powerful energy into his body, and strikes the entangler squarely, cutting him in half and tearing him from the demonic tree. He does this, and leaps back to the ground. With the mutant in his hand, he imagines that it's incredibly weak when it's not on the tree. He says this, and crushes it with his hand. Now only the demonic tree remains, which attacks again with its roots. But he takes out his knife again, and, with incredible speed, cuts everything in his path. He starts walking slowly, thinking that he never imagined the demonic tree would lose strength due to the lack of the entangler's buff. He grips his knife even tighter as the mutant stares at him and charges once again. The MC positions himself and cuts the tree into pieces, leaving only its small trunk. He realizes that there's no need to fight anymore and drives his knife deep into the monster's head, which screams in pain and then explodes. The system announces that he defeated the mutant entangler, medium D rank, and gained psychic experience. Furthermore, he defeated the level 1 demon of the tree at most, and thus earned more psychic experience. As a reward, he obtained the material, Giant Claw. He also got a psychic fruit, the Fruit of the Corpse. He notices the rewards and, although it has negative effects, it is considered a gem in regular combat. However, he is aware that the real benefit there was the psychic fruit. When used, the user's constitution will be permanently increased by 1 point. It also provides a 20% increase in HP recovery rate. He uses it, and the item begins to disappear in his hand. He is surprised, since for many awakened, leveling up by just 1 level only adds 4 points to their attribute. And now, after defeating 2 bosses, he has already improved significantly since his results were excellent. The soldiers who were nearby feel that the psychic pressure from the boss has passed and wonder if, by any chance, a level 2 awakened one passed through there. One of them comments that it can't be that, since there's no one around except for the boy they found earlier. The blonde boy, frightened, comments that he really felt something suspicious about that boy from earlier, and they wonder if that person is behind this, and, if that's the case, it's crazy. After that, half an hour later, the MC goes to the mutant materials buying and selling point. The shopkeeper notices that there are quite a few materials in the bag and asks if he wants to sell them all. Yenning responds yes, and kindly asks for the estimated value of everything. He imagines that negotiating through the system's trade channel is an option, but he couldn't waste any resources at the moment since face-to-face deals suit his style more. The woman who works there, after evaluating the items, comments that the 4 items, which come from a level 1 mutant of superior rank, are perfect for defensive equipment, and the estimate is 697 credit points. Since it's his first time there, she offers 700 credit points as a welcome offer. The MC reflects that, in this apocalypse, 700 credit points are enough to buy, for example, 200 kilos of meat or 8 mercenary squads. And knowing this, he says he will accept that amount. She informs him that the credit points have already been transferred and asks him to check. The mustached man hands him the shop card and provides some market information, as they also take custom orders. Yenning takes the card and asks if they have skill books specifically for sword techniques. He answers yes, including sword techniques, but warns that they are low rank and that, in all the safe zones of Tianfeng, you will only find sword skills of rank D available. The woman says there are 3 available and asks him to take a look. The MC grabs the tablet to check, and the system informs him that the first skill is Frenzied Slash, which, after spending a part of his physical and psychic energy, launches a single enhanced attack. It causes damage equal to 1.2 times his strength. The second option is Sword Slash. After spending some physical energy, the attack speed will be accelerated. During the first attack, it causes damage equal to 1.2 times his agility. Lastly, there is the Continuous Strike. After a high consumption of psychic energy, it delivers 2 quick slashes. Each attack causes 0.6 times his strength damage and has a chance to inflict an additional bleeding effect. After reading all the skills, he realizes that indeed, rank D skills are practically useless. He imagines that, despite the War God system upgrading the skill rank to the maximum, he still needs to carefully choose his skills, as the enhanced effect heavily depends on the base skill. He imagines, for example, Storm Sword, which, although the destructive power is colossal, has a significant delay in launching the power. So, if he encounters high-rank agile mutants in the future, he will have to avoid using this skill, even though it's powerful, since he will be left open until the attack charges. The shopkeeper, with a smile on his face, asks if anything caught his attention and adds that, if he isn't in a hurry, he could arrange for the transfer of other skill books, and if he pays the fee, he could even get rank C books, and, if he wants something specific, he could even get a rank B book. The MC responds that it's not necessary, as he wants to get the quick trace cut skill. In his head, he's very curious to see how it will evolve after the system update. The mustached man is confused by this decision, as he sees a young man coming in with materials from a level 1 superior mutant and settling for a rank D useless book, thinking that he must have a lot of money to throw away. Since it's none of his business, he tells his employee to give him the book for 600 credit points. She hands over the skill book, and the MC, after taking it, leaves. After leaving the store, he opens the system and sees that he still has 100 credit points remaining, and it would be a good idea to buy some food for his sister. After doing that and returning home, Yexian gets emotional upon seeing so much food. The MC explains that this is one of the perks of the Awakened Ones, and things will only get better. He also hands over some snacks that are just for her. He hands these over imagining that, in that apocalyptic time, just staying alive is a miracle, so eating snacks is something extremely luxurious. The little girl is truly surprised, as, to her knowledge, only the superiors have access to snacks, and even their whole neighborhood has never even seen one. The MC is happy to see his sister so happy and asks her to eat since there is plenty. After some time, he puts his sister to sleep, imagining that his mother is also working late, and decides to sit down since it's time to learn the skill. He opens the book, and a strong light emerges. The system window announces that the rank D skill book, Rapid Slash, has been learned successfully, and he currently has 2 skill slots occupied out of a total of 4. He focuses as he absorbs the knowledge until he opens his eyes, seeing the information in front of him. The skill now consumes 4,000 energy to perform a rapid slash. The attack gains 600% increase in strength and agility, lasting 1 second. The attack is accompanied by the aura of the destructive sword, which can cause an irregular limb-crushing effect on the first target hit, as well as a chance to deal critical damage. He realizes that this 600% increase is excellent, even if it's just for 1 second. But he wonders where he could test this new skill. He opens his drawer, having had an idea, and puts on a mask, as when it comes to speed, there is only one good place for that. 2 hours later, on the outskirts of the old city of Tianfeng, there are several mutants on all the buildings until the MC arrives at the location, saying it's the right place. He remembers that even in his past life, that neighborhood remained unexplored. He also remembers that, by coincidence, he discovered a level 2 mutant in that area, one that almost maximized his speed and agility, and it also had a very expensive blue equipment piece. Suddenly, he feels something sticky on his feet and realizes he is getting stuck, which is bad. At the same moment, several mutants begin to appear, catching his attention as they are all preparing to attack. When one gets close, the monster opens its massive mouth, but he quickly grabs his knife and delivers numerous rapid strikes, easily defeating the monster. He breathes a sigh of relief, as he was lucky it was just a zombie, because if it had been a climber, things would have been different, as fighting that toxic filth is like playing a game on hard mode. For this reason, he decides to find a better place as quickly as possible, saying so as a monster sneaks up on him. He recalls the last time he fought the powerful monster from that area, and even though he was already an awakened level 2 with blue equipment, he was destroyed. With his current condition, as he's a bit slower, he would be torn to pieces by a climber. He imagines that, if his memories are correct, this mutant is probably nearby. Suddenly, something catches his attention, making him question if that passage was there in his past life. He uses his knife to cut the bars and reflects that maybe he hadn't noticed it before, and it even seems like something to be used as a trap. Suddenly, something emerges from behind him, making noise. Immediately, the MC recognizes it as a hidden elite monster and starts to get worried, especially since the monster barely appeared and is already attacking. He dodges the first strike and repositions, thinking he needs to deal with the mutant quickly before the climber shows up. As he prepares to strike, he gets startled as he feels some extremely fast movements jumping from building to building. Then, the system alerts that the level 2 medium mutant climber is approaching. Now, in addition to the monster he was already facing, he will also have to deal with the new mutant, which is actually the most powerful one in the area. This makes him think that his situation has gotten worse in the worst possible way. The climber leaps and delivers a powerful attack, but Yexian barely manages to dodge it, finding it strange since the mutant seems much faster than when he encountered him in his past life. He also wonders if, thanks to the blind spot under the light effect, being very close to the climber makes his next attack easier to dodge. However, predicting the attack of an elite monster is quite complicated. With few options, he figures that he just needs to avoid the climber's attack. But since both are attacking, he worries and is forced to try to block, as it's impossible to defend. He receives the blow and lands on the ground, blood spilling from his arm. He thinks that he only got this far to test the new ability, but apparently, given the situation he's in, using the storm sword will probably be safer, although he doesn't feel secure since the conditions are not favorable for using this ability. Additionally, the climbers are extremely fast, and the storm sword won't hit them easily. Yexian places his hand on his sword, as all that's left is to trust in the heavenly light flow ability, but with a quick slash. At this moment, both the climber and the elite mutant rush toward him. At this moment, the MC remembers something from the description of the Chi sword ability, and because of that, he starts running, unsure of how much the Chi sword can extend, but already assuming the shortest range for safety. The mutants get closer and closer, and he draws his two knives, assuming that the Chi sword will have the minimum reach of the length of his arm, and even though the ability is single target, it might be enough to hit both monsters simultaneously. With this in mind, he unleashes his sword ability, Celestial Light Fisher. The range of the blows increased drastically, dealing immense damage to the monsters, leaving no chance for the elite mutant or even the climber, as after the blood kept falling, only the MC remained standing, with several marks on the ground caused by the effect of his strike. He is surprised since he killed both monsters at once, and even triggered a special attack effect, but he admits that he wishes he hadn't taken such a risk by attacking two monsters at the same time, as the chances of things going wrong were huge. At this moment, the system notifies him that he leveled up and killed a level 2 medium climber mutant, and as a result, a large amount of psychic experience was gained. It also notifies that he killed a level 1 high mutant worm and gained experience as well. He obtained the Agile Nublio material of blue rarity, as well as the equipment Wind-Slashing Claw of superior blue rank. Seeing all of this makes him think that it was truly worth it, even though it was extremely risky. Meanwhile, at the military station, the energy flotation device is sending multiple signals. One employee panics upon seeing this, as those signals are from an unknown energy that they've never encountered before, and he requests the alarms be triggered. Other employees ask what happened, as the alarm was set off. The man reports what happened, and they wonder if it could be a third-order awakener acting in the area. He says this, but gets scared afterward, as he remembers that none of the level 3 awakeners are at that location since they are all out, and he doesn't understand if it's a visit from another military base or a special operation from another country. 20 minutes later, in the neighborhood where the MC was, some scientists go to the area to see what happened and analyze the marks on the ground. One of them comments that he's never seen battle marks like these, and he also doesn't recognize them as coming from a monster. His partner finishes the analysis and shows on his device that the residual energy tracking indicated that the person who used that ability expended at least 4,000 psychic energy. They don't understand how this is possible, since for someone to be able to use all of that at once, they would have to be at least someone important of intermediate third level. Due to this, he informs that this is an emergency situation since it has exceeded the authority of their department, and therefore asks that they report to the Great Commander. After this, in the safe zone of Tianfeng, the MC analyzes in the system that the equipment increases agility by 4 and strength by 2. It increases attack speed by 30%, deals double damage of 120%, and also applies a short-range effect that inflicts 180% damage to the target for 2 seconds. He is pleased since it combines mobility with explosion, and it's no wonder that this premium equipment was worth 60,000 credit points in his past life. He is hoping to get a good price this time. After returning to his house, he goes to the computer and, since it is getting late, thinks it's better to quickly post the equipment online. He barely presses the key to send it and realizes there are questions about the equipment, which is apparently more desired than it was in his past life. A man informs that he would like to buy the Raging Windclaw and asks if a good price could be made. The MC types that the price is 60,000 credits and nothing less. The man asks if other resources, equipment, skills, or food could be used as part of the payment. Another person asks if it's still being offered, while a third offers 30,000. He realizes there are several people interested, so he won't need to worry about finding a buyer. Due to the demand, the MC informs that anything less than 30,000 is impossible to accept, and if they want to offer something to help with the payment, it should be sword-type skills or psychic fruits. One of the men who is interested gets excited about the equipment, saying he needs to get his hands on such top-tier equipment, even if he has to sell all his belongings. He turns and orders his subordinates to check all the equipment in the tribe, especially the ones related to swordsmanship. His subordinates respond that they will do so immediately. Half an hour later, they return with the equipment they found. He is concerned since all of that still isn't enough, and wonders if it's better to make a deposit to secure the item. Therefore, he orders once again for everyone to continue searching for funds as quickly as possible. After some time, the deposit is credited, and Yexian is pleased with this, realizing that the man truly loves the equipment. He remembers that in his past life, his mother and sister were always on the edge and never had a good day, so he reflects that he has been reborn with many resources and doesn't understand why they still need to suffer, and he will make sure they have a better life. The man interested in the equipment informs that the money is being collected and will be delivered the next day. The next day, at the Tianfeng Real Estate Agency, the employee asks the MC what type of apartment he is looking for. He, accompanied by his sister, informs that he wants the best unit and asks, please, for it to be quick. Since he is in a hurry, the woman is worried since she is seeing a level 0 awakened person looking for a house there, even though someone at that level doesn't have money to buy a brick. She then informs that the best units cost 40,000 credits and asks if he prefers to look at options for 2,000 credits, noting that she has other clients to attend to. Yexian responds that it's not necessary since he will want the residence worth 40,000 and he will transfer the money. The woman, suspicious, asks him to transfer it now if he really has the money. She says this, imagining that a ragged person with no money could just stop fooling around and leave. The MC's phone receives a notification that his current balance is 13,000 and therefore there are not enough funds for the transaction. He asks her to wait a moment, but the woman becomes furious, asking if he's here to play, given that he has no money. At this moment, a new message arrives on his phone. The buyer of the equipment apologizes for the delay, but has already gathered 39,375 credits, along with some equipment to complement. He sees the list of equipment that will complete the value, and although they are all white, they are decent as a set. With everything settled, the transfer is made, and the deposit of 39,375 was credited to his account. She hears this message coming in and is impressed by it. He lets her know that now he can transfer. This completely changes the expression of the salesperson, who praises him for being such a successful young man and asks if he knows how to transfer large amounts, since if he doesn't, she will call someone to help. The salesperson, all excited, asks to go to the VIP room to complete this process, as he deserves the best service possible. After this, the transfer is successful, and they go to the new house. His sister asks if they will really live there, and he answers yes, asking her not to throw out more trash. He also hands her the key, asking her to call their mother. She asks if he isn't going with her, but the MC replies that unfortunately not, as he has something to do. Later that night, he jumps between buildings, and while running, he imagines that the resources to take down the climber are almost running out, and so he needs to resupply. He is also aware that now the only option is the Cadaver Academy, the only place outside of the safe zone of Tianfeng where psychic fruits can be obtained. The case also involves level 2 mutants, and depending on the score, there are special rewards. He also remembers that no one had reached the maximum score, which means there are still rewards to be earned. He then jumps and leaps from the top of the building. A notification asks if he will enter the Cadaver Academy, and the dungeon's level restriction is level 2. Yexian responds yes, and is notified that there are 14 players at the location. He is then teleported. A shield is placed over the entire area, and the dungeon Cadaver Academy will begin in 1 minute. The current scenario of the place is normal, with no paranormal or special events. Enemies in this case include mutants, zombies, and some humans. The case takes place 7 days after an apocalyptic outbreak, with humans turned into zombies occupying the former academy, now a base that completes basic tasks to leave. The system presents the current basic mission. It is necessary to survive in the academy for 12 hours. During this time, he will not be able to leave the academy. The reward will be a random white equipment, in addition to psychic experience. He is also presented with the optional missions. The first one requires killing the cadaver of the fragmented lady. Its difficulty is level D. The second mission is to kill the butcher mutant. Its difficulty is level C. Lastly, killing all the zombies. Its difficulty is level C. At this point, a man in the room introduces himself, saying his name is Gao Yun, and asks if anyone has done that mission, and since he has done it once, he wants to volunteer to lead the team. A man mentions that he has heard that the Cadaver Academy is quite complicated, and so it would be interesting to have someone leading to show the right way. Gao Yun explains that the dungeon is considered medium to hard, even among level 2 awakened ones, so a poorly made coordination could result in the elimination of the entire team. Hearing this scares everyone, until they look at the MC in the corner of the room. The blonde guy approaches, calling Yexian a level 0, and asking if he is just there to die. He then asks if no one told him that the mission is level 2. He barely says that, and the MC releases his killing intent, leaving the guy scared since, although he can see that he is level 0, he is still intimidating. Because of this, he changes his tone and explains that it is a difficult mission, and if he can't handle it, he should stay behind everyone else to avoid causing trouble. He says this and walks away, asking for a little experience, since level 0 awakened ones also deserve to evolve. After this, he begins to explain the difficulty of the missions, as everyone must be there precisely for that, and asks that under no circumstances should they try to complete the tasks alone, as the last time he had to face 2 dungeon bosses. He also mentions that the team suffered many losses, and only survived because 2 level 2 guys fought desperately to clean the place. Meanwhile, the MC is not paying attention to anything as he is completely focused on his system, seeing that his attributes are still low, and apparently he won't be able to save on psychic fruits. However, he notices that his strength is already at 17 and, as far as he remembers, level 2 awakens have their strength points maximized at 18, so his strength is close to someone at level 2, even though he is at level 0. Seeing all of this excites him, as his stats, combined with his rank SS abilities, will make him the champion of that corpse academy. Gao Yun explains to everyone that the shield is about to disappear and asks them to prepare, mentioning that the boss is in the middle of the second order, so with 14 members, it won't be much of a problem. At that moment, a girl approaches, asking if the team captain will cover them if things get dangerous. He, embarrassed, asks them not to worry. Then, everyone heads outside in formation, with the captain asking them to stay right behind him. They barely start walking when the woman asks what's ahead. They spot Yexian running ahead and ask if the level 0 order is trying to kill himself on purpose, worrying because they couldn't finish the dungeon with someone hindering them. Gao Yun shouts not to worry, saying that someone at level 0 is so weak that they can't even hinder them, let alone help. After this, in the city of zombies, the MC continues climbing the stairs of a building until he spots some people asking for help, but they immediately turn into monsters trying to devour him. However, they are all defeated easily, with him saying that he's already been through this dungeon in his past life, so he recognizes all the NPCs, and ambushing him to devour him was never going to happen. He spots a door, thinking that the butcher is the one with the best droppable equipment in the dungeon, so he needs to try to lure him to the roof since he'll be able to finish him off quickly with the Storm Sword ability. Meanwhile, the group is advancing slowly and cautiously as the leader is focused on going to the dump, where Nukanubi appears, so they need to avoid other monsters before fighting. He asks them to follow, explaining that the more monsters they kill, the fiercer they will become, so they need to aim directly at the boss to take fewer risks. They spot the boss, while Gao Yun is still explaining that after they kill that boss, all the mutants in the dungeon will become furious, and they need to hide until this buff passes. The girl says she's happy to have a captain, as that way they'll get through easily. At that moment, their standard system spots that the level 2 mutant fragmented cadaver of the lady is approaching. The boss, who was ahead of them, turns toward them and, with his terrifying face, stares at the team. Gao Yun steps forward, as he's been seen and is a tank, so he warns that he'll take the hits while the team focuses on dealing damage. All the long-range members prepare their attacks to shoot and launch them at the same time while the boss is occupied. All the attacks hit their mark, making Gao Yun realize they now have a chance. He jumps and lands a hit with his shield to the mutant's face, but because of this distance, the boss leaps off the car and lands head first on one of the team members, devouring his head. The group asks what's going on, and the tank apologizes, saying he lost control of the boss for a second and pulls the aggro back, asking them to attack again. Meanwhile, elsewhere, the MC is deep in thought, as he has arrived at the butcher's location but can't find him there. So, he decides to check the system for the missions, and is surprised to see that the butcher's mission has disappeared, asking who the hell killed the boss since it wasn't him. Back in the team's battle, the butcher approaches and leaps toward the group, landing a hit on them, making the team panic and ask why the second boss is also there. Gao Yun, smiling, imagines that it's obvious that he is there since he took the mission in secret, and as a tank type awakened, he doesn't have much damage, which makes it difficult to get the best equipment from the dungeon. But if he's the last one standing when the boss has only a little bit of health left, he'll be able to get the equipment for himself, despite having a low score. To try to disguise his intention, he starts attacking the bosses, shouting that he wants to know who took the butcher's mission, and if, by any chance, it was the zero rank order who ran away, warning the team that this guy is trying to kill the team, and continues his act, shouting that he won't fall for dirty tricks. He activates his shield power and says that the bosses can attack now. The butcher changes his direction, as does the cadaver lady, since they are attracted to the tank. The team captain announces that he managed to grab their attention and asks them to focus on dealing as much damage as possible. The people still alive are surprised at how effective Gao Yun is being. Meanwhile, the MC is watching the battle from atop a building and has already figured out the leader's intention to blame him to steal the spoils. He admits it's a good plan, but only smiles, since, unfortunately, he chose the wrong guy to pull off this trick, thinking that there are still 2 hidden bosses in the dungeon. Knowing this, he accepts the rank C mission to kill the wilted mutant, and also accepts the rank B mission to kill the Lord of the Dead. Immediately, both hidden bosses appear. Yexian taunts them, asking them to attack at once. The monsters charge, and he reaches the edge of the building, jumping to the ground, since both bosses are following him and still furious, and this is perfect. At that moment, the team captain realizes that the person is the zero rank order until the MC lands on the ground. The bosses fall right after, leaving Gao Yun completely terrified by the size and aura of those monsters. The MC approaches him and asks if he doesn't like to play, asking them to play for real now, but with 4 bosses at the same time. The blonde boy panics and asks if he really accepted all the missions. The MC replies that yes, after all, he needed to cause some chaos there. Gao Yun can only imagine how someone can be this crazy, but deep inside, he thought he would trick the Awakened to finish the boss within the 3 remaining hours. But thanks to a level 0 guy, that plan is ruined. Because of this, he starts running desperately, asking them to follow him to the rooftop since they are screwed. Everyone watches the captain running away and follows the order. Yenning feels relieved, since if everyone goes to the auditorium, it will be much easier to deal with them there. After the whole group arrives at the location, they are completely terrified since the MC got there first, and they don't understand how that's possible. A guy from the group draws his swords and attacks, but starts noticing that none of his strikes land, wondering how a level 0 can dodge like that. The MC takes the opportunity to ask if their friend died at the hands of the butcher and says he didn't take that mission, but their captain did. This leaves everyone surprised, and they start accusing the blonde boy of deliberately leaving the Nuka-Nubi corpse loose to kill the team and take all the experience for himself. Gao Yun, worried about the mess he's getting into, explains that it's not the time to fight since Order 0 accepted all the missions. So soon, all the bosses will appear there, and their only hope to survive is to hold their position there. The girl, furious, asks how they are supposed to hold their position when there are 4 second-order mutants, not to mention the Corpse Master, who is at the peak of level 2. A guy shouts for everyone to stop complaining, saying that the building cannot be destroyed by anyone below level 3 except for the Nuka-Nubi, so since they are huge, they won't be able to enter the building. He asks them to split into 2 teams, and the long-range fighters will block the other 3 mutants. He says the rest of the group will stop the Nuka-Nubi along with the zombie horde at the front door, and as he fights the monsters, he swears that if he makes it out alive, he will crush Gao Yun and Yenning's heads. The MC finds this funny and tells him not to die until then. Meanwhile, the rest of the group looks at the bosses, and everyone fires their strongest attacks, causing multiple simultaneous explosions, but they soon realize it barely had any effect on the bosses. The girl falls to the ground since she didn't expect the attacks to be useless, and the groups Swordsmen start to notice that the situation is not good since the monsters keep appearing, and everyone is gradually losing strength. Gao Yun, trying to defend himself from the horde, says it's all over since there's nothing else to do. At that moment, the MC smiles since almost everyone is there, and reaching the edge of the building, he jumps, telling everyone to jump with him. As he jumps, the team asks if the level 0 guy is some crazy coward, but he gains momentum on the building and ascends into the sky, carrying a powerful energy. Immediately, they feel the pressure he is creating and wonder if the energy explosion is really coming from someone at level 0. The Hammerman starts running, saying they are already doomed, so there's nothing to lose by taking the risk, and that's why they jump off the building. Gao Yun watches in terror, aware that jumping from there could be an even worse death, and since he's a tank, maybe he has a chance to survive by staying. Yenning notices that the blonde boy didn't jump and even feels thankful for it. After gathering all the energy, he chants his ability, Storm Sword, and fires it at full power toward the building where all the monsters are, devastating everything in front of him, including Gao Yun, who is terrified by such power. The bosses stand no chance and are obliterated by the massive explosion in the area. The whole team is in shock, wondering if someone at level 0 really did that. They all watch as the dust settles and can't believe the bosses were wiped out in a second, and apparently, even Gao Yun turned to dust. They are also not amazed that level 0 has taken all the missions, since the destructive power they witnessed is at least at the 3rd level. Suddenly, the MC appears, asking if everyone is okay, and immediately a group member kneels, apologizing in case he was rude earlier, as he had not recognized such strength. The Hammerman also apologizes, stating that when he said "damn Order 0, it was meant for someone else. However, Yenning says he doesn't mind, and for that reason, asks the entire team to finish off the remaining zombies. Everyone bows, saying they will do it immediately, and then the MC jumps from the spot, asking them to follow him. One of the boys is amazed to have someone young, handsome, and powerful there, while the girls just stare at him, criticizing his attitude. The MC arrives at the location, remembering that Nukanubi had a hidden blue piece of equipment, and starts searching. As far as he remembers, it was half a skull, but due to the great destruction, he is not sure if he will find it easily. Just as he says this, he notices a strong glow right beside him. As he approaches, he manages to obtain the blue equipment, Skull of Resentment. Its effects are psychic control and psychic examination. It must be placed on the forehead to be used. He gets excited since the skull is a treasure for psychics, as the main reason psychics are always underestimated is that they cannot condense their abilities into concrete attacks like other awakened ones, making it difficult to deal damage. He brings the skull closer to his head, knowing this buff will be incredible, and a glow begins to emerge, making his entire face turn blue along with his eyes as he absorbs the equipment. After condensing all the energy in his body, he feels satisfied, as he will now be able to use telekinesis and, as a first test, begins by lifting a huge rock that was right behind him. Upon commanding it to be thrown, the massive rock explodes completely upon hitting the target. Immediately, he uses his ability on the rock debris and, with a flick of his finger, makes the stone fragments rain down on the ground with maximum power, creating multiple holes in his test target. He realizes that the attack was actually not bad, and that when his level increases, it will become even more formidable. Then, he decides to test the psychic detection ability, and, bringing his fingers to his head, he is notified that there are people and monsters in the 3 o'clock direction, 12 meters away. There are also beings at the 10 o'clock direction, 28 meters away, and when he tries to scan further, he simply loses connection. Yenning concludes that the current maximum range of the ability is 29 meters, but is aware that it will suffice for now. Suddenly, a notification appears, informing that all zombies in the Academy of Corpses have been eliminated and all missions have been completed. With this, the exit has been unlocked, and after leaving, rewards will be calculated based on performance. It is announced that the dungeon was cleared by Yenning, achieving 100% completion, with the dungeon level being rank SS. As a reward, he received a random draw for a blue piece of equipment, 6 white pieces of equipment, 3 free attribute points, a rank B skill book, the corpse of the fragmented lady, the mutant butcher, the withered mutant, and the slain lord of corpses. Despite the lower level, he also earned 2 extra attribute points. On top of all that, he notices that his level has reached the maximum of level 1, and therefore, he is asked to choose his leveling mission as soon as possible for full integration. The MC is pleased with everything he received, as the dungeon was quite generous, and he might even be able to sell the white equipment online. But at the moment, he is interested in seeing the blue equipment he obtained, so he clicks for the blue equipment draw. A portal appears, and he is notified that his reward is the Thunder Boots. It increases agility by 2, running speed by 20%, jumping ability by 20%, and there is also an additional paralysis effect upon kicking. Besides that, there are some extra bonuses. He feels satisfied as his attributes have increased significantly and wonders if he already belongs to the agility class. Immediately, Yenning equips his boots, since he will help with the mission to advance to the second order. After that, at the Tiangfeng Mission Center, still at night, the MC arrives at the place, and the receptionist asks what type of mission he wants. He says he wants the advancement missions, but she, bored from seeing that he is a level 0, asks if he wants to take the first order mission as usual. He says he will take all 4 second order missions at once. The receptionist is shocked to hear such an absurdity and asks him to repeat it since she doesn't know if she is dreaming or if he is just crazy. She calls him a rank 0, which irritates him since he is tired of hearing that. The receptionist, still embarrassed, asks if he is unaware of the rule against taking missions above his current order, and, therefore, she doesn't understand how he wants to take 4 missions at once, warning that the common practice among dual awakened individuals is to take 1 mission at a time since the penalties for failure are extremely severe. He places his hand on the crystal and says he is aware that failing a mission reduces 50% of attributes and failing all of them would leave him crippled or even dead, but he states that he is prepared to deal with the consequences and therefore activates the strength test. Immediately, an intense glow begins to overflow from the crystal, startling the receptionist, as the MC is serious, asking her to quickly register that strength. She does not hide her shock because the crystal could not contain so much power and crack. At that moment, someone enters the place, asking if the SS rank talent is there. Yenning turns around, confused, since someone arrived out of nowhere. This is Huang Xiao, captain of the reconnaissance squad. He asks why a rank 0 is taking missions so late at night, in addition to trying so hard for nothing, saying that no matter how much he tries, the psychic class won't do much. The woman, in shock, tries to explain that it is not quite the case but can barely say a word. Suddenly, a squad enters, saluting the captain. He informs them that traces of a third-order battle have been discovered at the Cadaver Academy, and that the superiors have ordered an investigation of the place, so he asks everyone to stay alert. The MC is pleased to hear this since the one responsible for this destruction, which caught the superior's attention, was himself. After that, in a zoo that looks more like a paradise for the dead, a group approaches, and a guy asks the commander if they shouldn't inform the safe zone about the operation's location, since he noticed that troops are everywhere lately and apparently are looking for something. Gang, who is a third order awakened and also the commander of the Zhenjiang district, replies that he doubts it since his son has just been chosen for the project sequence, and therefore, he is only there to get a blue-grade piece of equipment as a gift. Moreover, he mentions that the Tianfeng district is resentful because the superiors abandoned the SS rank talent named Yenning, so it's like rubbing salt into their wound. He then asks if he is sure about the information he received regarding a mutant at the peak of level 2 that is about to advance to level 3. A subordinate tells him to relax since the information is solid and the monster is the zombie tiger, which will definitely drop a blue-grade piece of equipment. The commander then smiles at this information and orders everyone to get ready. Meanwhile, in another location, the MC is on top of a house checking the missions he has to complete since 2 of them are in that zoo. making it a good opportunity to finish them together. Therefore, he decides to activate his psychic detection and, while scanning the area, immediately spots the awakened team, recognizing that one of them is level 3. Instantly, the commander stares in the direction of the detection, startling the MC to the point that he deactivates his ability right away, since if he had waited a little longer, he would have been seen. And to make matters worse, if the team reaches the targets first, he will fail the mission. For this reason, he jumps, as he needs to act fast. At that moment, monsters appear, surrounding the team. They identify them as the zombie dog and the blood bear, so everyone needs to be careful. One of the subordinates suggests splitting up, since they need to take the dog away from the commander. Meanwhile, 2 other awaken focus on provoking the mutant dog, as separating the team this way makes it easier to fight. Suddenly, a powerful pressure arises in the area, immediately catching Gang's attention. As he turns around, he wonders if it's the zombie tiger, until he realizes he was right, as the monster is already by his side. He gets excited, saying it arrived at the perfect moment, and charges forward, initiating a new battle. At the same time, the MC observes from a distance, considering that the level 3 guy might be after the zombie tiger's blue equipment, but is also aware that he has his own mission to complete. As for the blue equipment, he is somewhat interested, but he knows that stealing kills is not very honorable, besides being a terrible idea to become an enemy of a rank 3. However, the story might change if they fail to defeat the monsters. As he notices several powerful creatures gathering against the team, he decides to check his abilities, realizing that the Sword Storm is still on cooldown, leaving only the Celestial Light Rift available for use. Moreover, he knows it's extremely dangerous to use this skill from his current distance, so he will need to wait for the perfect moment. The commander continues his frantic battle against the zombie tiger and, with his wind slash, lands a precise hit, knocking the tiger down instantly. Yenning, still watching from afar, realizes how powerful the team captain is and that he is probably using a dual system of strength and agility. Gang prepares a lightning-fast attack and strikes the monster's head head-on, sending it crashing to the ground. However, this time, the tiger counterattacks with its tail and lands a direct hit, as even though the commander blocks, he is sent flying into a wall, destroying everything in his path. He gets up, badly injured, saying he expected nothing less from a monster that is nearly level 3. As he stands, the commander states that apparently he won't be able to get out of this without a special move. Concentrating intense magic into his spear, he unleashes his furious blazing slash, attacking with such force that the giant tiger is engulfed in burning flames that start frying the monster continuously. Meanwhile, his team keeps fighting until one of the members announces that the commander has already defeated the monster, meaning they no longer need to hold back the creatures. They shout to reposition, and the girl starts running, begging the dog to stop chasing her like a madman. The MC watches the chaos unfolding below and realizes the distance is perfect, so he prepares his attack as the time has come. However, he abruptly stops his power as he is startled by an overwhelming aura, just like everyone on the ground, as a red aura suddenly appears. The commander looks back, unable to believe that the zombie tiger is getting back up, concluding that the monster has finally advanced to level 3. Yenning realizes the situation has worsened significantly, so he will have to defeat the monster. Seeing the entire team surrounded, including by the tiger, which is now level 3, he charges his light flow attack and fires at full power, catching the captain's attention as he is startled by an attack out of nowhere. The strike tears through all the monsters, making everyone wonder if an intermediate or even peak level 3 is present, as all they see is the monsters being obliterated. The awakened don't understand what just happened and ask who the hell did that. The bald man yells at the captain that their prey, the zombie tiger, was obliterated in seconds, but he shouts that he is not blind, as he saw the power that killed the monster and is completely furious that his prey was stolen. He doesn't understand how something like this could have happened since the power came from someone more powerful than he himself, and therefore, it wouldn't make sense to seek a direct fight. imagining he will have to have a serious conversation with Commander Xiao Hai. Meanwhile, the MC system notifies him that the cadaver dog, the blood bear, and the cadaver tiger were killed despite their lower levels, and for that reason, 3 attribute points were obtained. As a reward, he received the materials: Dogtooth, Bear Paw, and Tiger Eye. He also obtained the item Crazy Blood of White Rarity, the Giant Bear Head, also white, and lastly, the Gloves of the Tiger's Resentment of Blue Rarity. He keeps running while reading this information in the system and, after distancing himself, decides to open the blue equipment information to see how strong it is. The glove is an assistive weapon and has an attack with great impact power. Its ability is the Tiger's Roar, which releases resentment and willpower in a fist, dealing psychic damage to the target, creating a short-term stun effect and a chance to cause fear, with a recharge time of 24 hours. Those who use it are capable of enduring the terror of the mutant tiger. Reading this makes the MC understand why the level 3 commander would want the equipment so badly, and he immediately equips them. Meanwhile, in another location, Huang Xiao is stretching while commenting that he's reached a dead end regarding the Cadaver Academy, as, just like in the forest, he couldn't find any clues about a level 3. At that moment, a subordinate appears running, reporting that the exploration department has just detected 2 level 3 energies. Hearing this, the captain is startled, as it happened again, and this time it was twice, not understanding how so many level 3 awakened ones are appearing in Tianfeng. Therefore, he prepares, asking everyone to return, and warns them that if they don't solve this before the Supreme Commander returns, they will be in serious trouble. After that, Gang returns to the base and starts shouting for Xiao Hai, asking him to show up already. At that moment, Huang Xiao appears, asking if it isn't the commander from the Zhenjiang district himself, and informs that the Supreme Commander is dealing with some matters, but is curious to know why he is so nervous. The captain of the team asks who is asking, and he replies that he is the commander of the reconnaissance department and also the Supreme Commander's right-hand man. Gang then opens up, explaining that early in the morning, they were at the dead zoo hunting a zombie tiger to get a blue equipment and give it as a gift to his son, until a Third Order Awakened stole his kill. The reconnaissance captain realizes that the power spikes seem to have come from the zoo, and then Gang continues shouting that he was about to kill the level 3 monster, but someone from the district appeared and stole the kill right under their noses. Huang Xiao tells him to stop joking, reminding him that everyone knows that the only level 3 in all of Tianfeng is the Supreme Commander, so there's no way something like that could have happened. This makes Gang even more irritated, as he knew it would lead to nothing, and he warns that he will go to the front lines to settle things personally with the Supreme Commander. He says this and leaves with his team. The reconnaissance captain becomes concerned, realizing that the situation is more serious than he thought, so he needs to contact the commander immediately. Meanwhile, in another location, Xiao Hai asks if it's true that level 3 awakened ones are operating in Tianfeng and even managed to steal a prey from Gang himself. He informs that, if it's true, this is a serious security breach and, for that reason, asks them to find them and do it publicly since they can't afford to create panic. The captain replies that he will order the entire city to be searched for records of equipment sales. The MC keeps observing his system with the missions and imagines that now he just needs to get the Wind Eagle feathers and make that anomaly to finally reach level 2. Feeling pleased with this since these feathers are quite easy to buy online. Even though they are rare, he is also aware that the demand for them is low, so it's easy to buy them, and for that reason, he makes a request in the system. After making the request, someone quickly replies asking if he is really looking for these feathers and wants to know how much he is offering, stressing that they are very difficult items to get. Yenning finds this funny, since they are trying to trick him, and still offers 800 credits for the item. The owner of the feathers can't believe this offer, since it's more than he earns in a year being a level 1 rank C awakened, and because of that, he starts to push his luck, saying he wants 900 and right after asks for 1,000 credits for the feathers, claiming he risked his life for them. The MC laughs, since he finds this pathetic, and starts tearing the kid apart, saying he's sure he's a level 1 rank C and still wants to say he fought with his own hands against the Wind Eagle. Still shouting loudly, he says he got lucky with a good offer and now wants to play games by asking for an absurd price. He confesses he actually needed them urgently, but because of this act, he doesn't want them anymore. The guy hears that, almost falling into depression, and immediately bows, apologizing and asking to settle for the 800. Yenning finds all of this a joke and says he'll pay 400 and it's take it or leave it. The man, crying a lot for being greedy, says it's fine and accepts the offer. The MC is now aware that with this, only the anomaly event dungeon of the Manhwa Educational Institution remains, and they say this dungeon is different from the others since no one in history has been able to complete it with an SSS rank. He gets excited because he knows that the number of failures is due to the fact that it's testing willpower and not combat ability. The system asks whether he will enter the Youth Education Center dungeon or not. He doesn't hesitate and chooses yes, commenting that it's time to discover how strong his willpower is. As he does this, a red aura starts swirling around him, and the sky changes color. Only then does he get startled, realizing that there are other people in the dungeon besides him, and he didn't expect it to be like this. These people begin complaining of headaches. Liang Tengfei admits that the dungeon is quite strange since even the teleportation was weird. At this moment, Zhiping approaches and introduces himself, saying that he's at the peak of level 1 of willpower, and that's why he asks if everyone here is also from the willpower category. Liang Tengfei asks what kind of question that is, since, besides willpower, who else would choose an advancement mission like this? The girl agrees, as they are known to be weak in combat and wouldn't even be able to defeat a regular mutant. The old man responds that they are right, but comments that despite being weak in combat, he is almost certain that the dungeon will test their willpower, and that's why he believes they will succeed. He reveals that he has had 2 or 3 experiences in dungeons like that, and because of this, he asks to lead the team. He notices the MC is silent and asks if, by any chance, he has any objections. Yenning answers no, asking only to get to the point. Then, the mission is presented. It's necessary to find the hidden ghost in the high school and seal it. The instructions are as follows. First, it is necessary to determine the location of the ghost. Do not trust lies. And once the sealing talisman is in effect, if it fails to hit the ghost, the mission will be considered a failure, and elimination is instant. Immediately, everyone is shocked to see that the mission involves a ghost, and asks if something like this really exists in the world. The old man asks them not to panic, explaining that although it's called a ghost, it's just the will of an individual, contaminated by psychic energy before death. In summary, it's a variant of the mental attribute. However, he emphasizes that even so, a ghost is still powerful since, in addition to being able to protect itself from physical damage, it can also control the will of others. He further explains that according to the first step, they need to search the building for clues, and if they find it, they should not act carelessly because they need to run and call for help. After walking for a while, Zhiping informs them that they need to search the classroom, the archive, and the teacher's office, so they will need to split into groups. He suggests that the girl go with him because she is the weakest, while Tengfei will stay with Yuan, and Yanning should go alone. He asks that anyone who finds something share the information immediately. With these instructions, the MC goes to the archive room and quickly finds a piece of paper on the floor, noticing that the place is practically empty except for the papers on the ground. On that specific one, he notices it's written, Professor Tao, suspected of harassing Wang Fang, who committed suicide. At that moment, a creature appears above him and lets out a terrifying scream instantly. Yenning realizes that this is a female ghost and wonders if it's Wang Fang. With this in mind, he activates his full willpower and his aura becomes denser, attacking like needles, hitting the ghost directly, which jumps through the window. He can't believe it escaped and wonders if it was just to test his willpower. Then, Xia communicates through the system, informing that she and Ji Ping found a report that a year ago, there was a fire in the teacher's dormitory, resulting in the deaths of several people. Tang Fei informs that he found a contract that forces the school to compensate for psychological damage. The only signature was from Wang Fang's family. Yuan also reports that after the fire incident, there are records that the school invited Taoist priests to place sealing talismans. The MC also decides to share the information, mentioning that a harassment case occurred at the school a year ago, and the victim was Wang Fang, who is suspected of having committed suicide afterward. The suspect is Professor Tao. With all this information, the old man comments that the clues are clear since this Wang Fang was harassed by the professor, and her family asked for compensation but was unsuccessful, and because of that, she committed suicide and turned into a ghost, causing fires as a form of revenge. He further explains that after these events, Taoist priests appeared to seal the ghost, but without success, and their mission is to find this talisman to seal her. Yening watches as the old man instructs them to meet at room 201, which is the dormitory where the fire happened, since the talisman should be there. He understands that the logic is too simple and cannot grasp how he figured out the correct dormitory. Tang Fei agrees upon receiving this message since they need to find this ghost as soon as possible until, suddenly, the Four Eyes notices something behind them, and the two begin pointing their lanterns. Scared, he screams that something is surrounding them, and they yell to run since it's Wang Fang. They immediately flee from the room, screaming for the old man to save them. At that moment, the MC reunites with the old man and the girl in the teacher's dormitory. Ping tells them that the rest of the team hasn't arrived yet and that he will go outside to search for the talisman. Xia says the iron door is jammed and maybe she should try to open it with her willpower. However, without much hesitation, the MC kicks the door down with a powerful blow, leaving both the girl and the old man startled, wondering if this person really belongs to the willpower category. With the room opened, the girl quickly announces that she found the talisman, and Yening, observing carefully, notices the trail of a humanoid shape, as well as the fact that the talisman had fallen there. With this in mind, he asks Xia if the clues he found spoke of the professor who was burned alive in the room. She answers no. At this moment, the boys appear, screaming for help, as the ghost was hunting them until it finally managed to possess Yuan's body. Tang Fei is shocked seeing this, as his friend has been completely possessed. He screams in fear, but the ghost doesn't give him time to react, gripping his neck. The old man says he will help since the ghost has taken Yuan and asks them to activate the talismans to prepare to seal the ghost. Immediately, the MC grabs the talisman from the girl's hand, stating that he will do it, and begins activating it. While the two concentrate, Ping uses his mental chains, which bind Yuan's possessed body. He screams for them to hurry, since he won't hold on much longer. Yening tells him not to worry, as it will be quick, and with one swift movement, he throws the talisman at the old man's back, calling him Professor Tao. The old man calls him a fool, saying that he wasted the talisman on the wrong person, and now they will all die. Yening asks if he is sure and points ahead, asking for an explanation of why Yuan fell like a stone when he used the talisman on the old man. She watches the fallen boy and becomes frantic, wondering if the old man is really the enemy here. The MC begins his explanation, saying that Guo Sheng disguised himself as Uncle Jiraping and using willpower manifestation to conjure the fake ghost, spent the whole time testing and analyzing the awakened people's abilities, as well as messing with everyone's minds. He also says that earlier, he almost had his mind tormented by the fake ghost, and that's when he realized that someone there had strong willpower, so he went after someone weaker like Yuan, and although he called it possession, he was just manipulating Yuan's willpower the whole time. Then the old man started pretending to fight against the fake ghost, emphasizing that they needed to seal the Yuan everything to create a distraction and waste the talisman. Huang Xia falls to the ground, unable to believe all of this, since, if everything she heard is true, and if she really had thrown the talisman at the Yuan, the MC doesn't give him time to lament what happened and warns the old man that he is now defenseless and sealed, so he attacks, asking him to show his true form once and for all. Ping is hit by all the spiritual attacks and falls to the ground, writhing in pain until his skin starts to melt. And in this process, the monster becomes furious since his disguise was perfect and asks how the hell he discovered this. The MC warns that the team won, so it's over, and there's no reason to give any explanation. The monster gives a broad smile, asking if he really thinks it's over, since there's a hidden objective in the dungeon, and if he doesn't fulfill this objective, it will never end as an SSS rank. Yenning turns and asks what he means by hidden objective. The monster responds, asking why he thinks no one has achieved SSS rank in that dungeon so far, and says that he will reveal a little secret, stating that the hidden objective is for him to disappear by his own will, and asks him to reveal how he discovered who the monster was there. And if he does, he will immediately disappear completely, and so will the hidden dungeon. The MC becomes thoughtful about this, since the situation is the same as in the Cadaver Academy, but the difference is that there, he knew about the hidden objective due to his past life, and that's why he achieved SSS rank. However, things were different in this current dungeon, since at that time, he didn't have the time to explore more options because the army kept him busy with other priorities. He decides to try his luck, saying he will play this little game, but before anything else, he asks why he wants to know so badly, and before receiving an answer, he realizes, asking if the monster was born with spiritual intelligence and keeps the memories of past dungeon instances, and if that's why he's willing to reveal his disguise, to learn from his mistakes, perfect the disguise, and thus deceive more awakened people in the future. The girl is terrified to hear that it's spiritual intelligence, since she has never heard of anything like that in this apocalypse. And if it really is the case, that dungeon can't possibly be rank C, it would be something higher, like B or even A. The monster congratulates Yenning for being so intelligent, since the reason is exactly that. And so, he asks if she could explain how she figured it out. He decides to tell, explaining that first, the clue, "Don't trust the ghost's words," was theoretically supposed to be about Wang Fang. However, this ghost didn't say a single word throughout. Secondly, the old man stayed quiet in the chat, and so he assumed he couldn't access the system. His third clue was the papers on the ground he found, which only said that Wang Fang tried to commit suicide, but never explicitly said that she died. On the other hand, the teachers definitely died. Lastly, there's the talisman, which, if it was supposed to be used on Wang Fang, should be in her tomb and not in the teacher's room. Yenning then shares her theory that the old man Ping harassed Wang Fang and she tried to kill herself but survived. Then she was admitted to a psychiatric hospital and was unable to testify against him. But her family, on the other hand, desperate for justice, complained to the school, demanding compensation, and when that didn't work, they set fire to the teacher's room. So in the end, the old man, who is actually Guosheng, had his will contaminated by this spiritual energy in his final moments, becoming what they call a ghost. After all, they need to remember that the haunting started after the fire, which was when they called a Taoist priest to seal him. Huang Xia is surprised since Yanning seems to be right, as they were so focused on Ping's story that they never stopped to question all of this. However, the monster questions this, since he thought the conclusion was correct, but the reasoning is flawed. He explains that the ghost could have spoken after being sealed, and the fact that he himself wasn't sending messages through the system could mean that he was busy looking for other clues. It also says that Wang Fang's attempt to kill herself, along with the appearance of the ghost, was a perfect combination, and the story of the dormitory didn't make sense, since the girl could have been killed there. The MC responds that she's right, since that wasn't enough to accuse him. But he emphasizes that he can't trust the words of a ghost, as was already hinted, and so, if she wants to know more details, she has to disappear first, as he will only tell them seconds before vanishing completely. The monster bursts into laughter, calling Yenning cruel, but agrees, saying it will disappear, and so its body begins to disintegrate, and it asks her to tell it quickly. The MC starts to slowly explain that there's one more important detail, but the ghost calls him a bastard, demanding that he tell it quickly because it won't have time to hear. Yenning, with an evil look, reveals that the most important detail is that he himself figured out the whole plan. The monster doesn't believe it was tricked like that and disappears completely, its last words being cursing the MC as a bastard. The girl can't hide how surprised she is, since not only did he figure out how to get through the dungeon, but he also managed to trick the ghost. But he tells her not to think too much about it, since they need to leave the dungeon. Before that, she asks if he really figured out the monster's plan. He reveals that he didn't, since his biggest mistake was saying that the talisman was in room 201, since there was no clue indicating that, and only the ghost would know, and there was no reason to reveal that to the ghost. Wang Xia trembles in fear, calling him more frightening than the ghost itself. After that, the system announces that the dungeon was completed by Yanning and was completed 100%, reaching the SS ranking. As a reward, he received 4 points of willpower, plus 4 white equipment and 1 blue equipment. This blue rarity equipment is the evil account, a passive item. It increases psychic recovery speed by 20% and resistance to psychic attacks by 20%. Also, as a special effect, when facing a psychic attack, it can nullify severe damage. After nullifying, the item disappears. He thought this item was great since it will be very useful. After that, he returns to the mission center and goes to the reception. The woman, remembering that he's the boy from the previous night, asks if he returned because he completed one of the 4 missions he accepted as advancement for the Second Order. He hands over the report, leaving the receptionist shocked since he managed to complete all 4 missions in less than 24 hours. He asks if it could be done a bit faster since he's in a hurry, and she immediately says yes. With that, the mission to increase the level of the strength system was completed. His strength increased by 1, and he gained bonus credits. The agility mission was also successfully completed, as well as the physical system mission and the willpower system mission. Because of that, he received 1 point in each attribute, plus 7,300 credits. With everything settled, he leaves, thinking it's amazing that he managed to reach level 2 in less than a week, and admits that the Sword God system is truly unique, since it was much faster than in his past life. Immediately, the receptionist picks up the phone and says she needs to report to her superiors since what she witnessed is too absurd. At this moment, the MC is walking and checks that he has 19 strength, 18 agility, 15 physical, and 35 willpower. He doesn't think this is bad at all, since with these attributes he is well above a level 2 awakened, even without the equipment bonuses, and remembers that there is the rank B sword technique, Shadow Attack, which requires 25 in strength, agility, and physical attributes. He also remembers that 1 spiritual fruit is enough to increase each attribute by 1 until each one has 20 points. So in total, he will need at least 35 fruits, costing 6,000 points each, meaning he will need 210,000 credits. He takes his motorcycle and leaves the city discouraged since this strategy is out of consideration, and he has already completed most of the decent dungeons in Tianfeng, with only the Death Factory near the Zhenjiang border remaining, which, if he remembers correctly, also drops a high-level blue equipment that could bring in a good amount of money. Suddenly, the sky creates a huge red curtain, leaving him scared, as he knows that this is a sign of the zombie hour, but he doesn't understand, since the global zombie outbreak shouldn't happen for at least another year, and Tianfeng was hit by this large horde before, killing many people, and if he's not mistaken, it happened a week after. He turns around on his motorcycle, as he needs to urgently warn the Supreme Commander so they can prepare. In another location, on the aircraft, the Supreme Commander receives the notification from Yanning about the zombie horde. The MC's message says that within a week, the Celestial Wind District will face a wave of zombies and therefore asks if they could please move the men from the barracks as quickly as possible to ensure everyone's safety. Xiao Hai finds this strange, accusing the MC of not having received proper treatment and therefore chasing headlines, or maybe his powers are so weak that anything seems like a great threat. He says this because he knows that the last great battle between humans and the zombie horde was 40 years ago, and the world has been at peace since then. So, them appearing out of nowhere is unlikely, and he decides that instead of wasting resources on uncertainties, he will focus on finding the Third Order Awakened ones who are hiding. After this, he moves to another location. Arriving at the meeting room, two subordinates were waiting. He immediately asks if they found any important clues about the mysterious third-level awakened one. Huang Xiao responds yes and hands over the report, stating that the suspect's name is Yening. He is shocked when they say this name and asks how this is possible. The subordinate admits that it was hard to believe as well, but after investigating a lot, they found that Yening's activities matched those of the mysterious third-level events, and also, this person recently bought a spiritual house, something impossible for ordinary people. The Supreme Commander continues reading the report, but admits that he simply doesn't believe this. Liaoxian says the same, since Yening awakened a week ago and, even though he has an SS rank talent, it is impossible to level up so quickly. He gives the example of General Zhang, who had a double awakening of strength and agility at SS rank, and even with abundant resources, he only recently reached level 1, and as he says this, he bangs the table angrily, saying that there is a third-level awakened one supporting Yening from the shadows. Xiao Hai responds that this theory is plausible, since, despite the army not favoring Yening, it could be that a level 3 saw potential in him. After all, he is an SS-ranked awakened. With this decided, he informs them that they don't need to panic, as they need to find this third-level awakened one as quickly as possible to make him work for the army. At that moment, they receive a notification from the mission center informing them that Yening has just completed 4 second-order advancement missions. Hearing this leaves both Huang Xiao and Liao Qian surprised, since once again, it's Yening, and he has even completed 4 advancement missions at once. The Supreme Commander starts to worry, since, if his subordinate's theory is correct, it means that the third-level awakened one helped him complete all these missions, leaving the MC to keep the spoils. But doing second-order missions would prove that Yening is a third-level person. Concerned about this, he orders that his people monitor Yening's house to find out who the awakened one supporting him is, and also orders troops to watch over the abandoned cities of Tianfeng to prevent an outbreak. He imagines that, if someone of level 3 is indeed supporting Yening by warning about the outbreak, it's better to be safe than sorry. Huang Xiao reports that he will do this immediately, and only then does the Supreme Commander start to leave the room, but stops halfway as he remembers to ask them to get a blue equipment for Gang to stop bothering him, since he lost the equipment to the mysterious third level. After that, the MC arrives at the Death Factory and positions himself, as the cooldown for the Storm Sword has already reset. He accepts the mission to enter the dungeon. He is informed that the Death Factory is rank B, the minimum level is level 2, and there are 15 participants. This dungeon is of the war type, with random objectives. The dungeon has 7 waves of enemies, and the participants will receive rewards for surviving each wave. He then teleports inside and is informed that participants will have 3 minutes to vote to leave the dungeon after each wave. A majority vote, which is 70%, is required to initiate the exit. Otherwise, the participants will have to complete all 7 waves, and the first wave will begin in 5 minutes. Several people are gathered, making the MC feel uneasy, as not only are all the members from the same faction, but there is also a woman who is level 3, giving him chills as if something bad were about to happen. A man introduces himself and explains that he is an advanced level 2 awakened, saying that this dungeon is for survival, and that he was thinking about volunteering as leader, but saw that there is someone of level 3 here. Barely finishing this, he receives a full kick from the girl, who throws him hard against the ground, spitting blood immediately. She prepares to attack again, making the MC scared, as the girl is extremely fast. Linlun places her foot on the man's head and warns him that if he says another word, he will die there. 2 of the man's friends ask what Zhang did wrong, and why the level 3 awakened is doing this. She tells her 3 henchmen to restrain the others, and if anyone resists, she will defeat them personally. Because of this, the group is surrounded, as they were ordered not to move a muscle. Song comments that, unfortunately, he imagined that they would fall in with a farming group, while his friend says that, unfortunately, there is nothing they can do, as they cannot defeat a level 3 person. The MC reflects on the farming groups that use Awakened as cannon fodder, forcing people to fight at the front while they take all the benefits, always using these people as bait. The man says that Zhang is still alive, so they should vote immediately to leave while they still have the numerical advantage. But the girl immediately crushes the man's head into the ground, leaving Song terrified by seeing this. Linlin decides to introduce herself, saying that they are from the Blood Wolves squad and that she is the captain, so the mission is under her command, as well as the lives of everyone, but promises that if they survive the 6th wave, handing over all the rewards, she will let them live. The MC doesn't believe this nonsense, as scum like her would never spare anyone, and laments that his Celestial Light Rift ability is on cooldown, as he could combine it with the Storm Sword, instantly annihilating these scum. He reflects that he only has the Storm Sword ready for use, and, although it is powerful, he doesn't know if he has the strength to kill a level 3, especially if they have blue equipment protecting them. And since he might die trying, he thinks it is better to just observe quietly. The girl warns that the first wave will begin soon, so she asks for everyone's name, rank, and abilities. Song introduces himself and says he is level 2, focused on physical strength and hand-to-hand combat. Lin Teng also introduces himself, being level 2, focused on agility and ranged attacks. Jiang Tao says he is also level 2 and is focused on hand-to-hand combat. Xiao Bo is also level 2, focused on agility with ranged attacks. Lastly, the MC introduces himself, saying that he is a level 2 beginner and is from the Willpower class, specialized in long-range attacks. She approaches him, finding it very interesting that someone from the Willpower class is in this dungeon, and also thinks he is handsome, then laughs and says it's a shame. He is pleased that she thinks of him as useless. Soon after, the first wave is announced, and the enemy count is 100 mutated zombies, 2 of which are from the First Order. The monsters immediately charge into the attack while the team takes position, asking the level 2s to lead each squad. Song complains that, unfortunately, the Wolf Squad won't help and will only use them as cannon fodder, so he asks if they will really manage to get out alive. Lin Teng immediately backs off, warning that there's no choice but to survive the first waves, since the monsters are attacking anyway. He aims with his bow, stating that he and Song will take care of the Devourer, and asks the others to handle the zombies. His friend immediately jumps into the enemies with his hammer, while the others position themselves from afar, preparing their attacks. Xiao Bo launches his ice spikes, and the massacre against the mutants begins. Meanwhile, the MC prepares a psychic attack and hits only one monster. The guy next to him says that he's really weak since he only managed to kill one zombie with the attack. From the top of the factory, Linlin laughs, saying that Yenning is really hilarious and doesn't understand how he had the courage to show up there, emphasizing that if it weren't for the other awakened ones nearby, he would have already died, and she doesn't imagine how he will survive the next waves. With that, the first wave is successfully completed, and half an hour later, the third wave is successfully completed, with a notice that the next wave will start in 3 minutes. The group starts to get frustrated since the difficulty is increasing a lot, and they want to see when Linlan will start to help. At that moment, she appears, asking if they are really having trouble only in the third wave, and warns that she won't lift a finger, as level 2 awakened ones should be stronger, so she will only help in the 6th wave. She looks to the side and sees the MC. She then comments if he still hasn't died, and from what she sees, he doesn't have a single scratch. He, embarrassed, replies that it was just luck. Hearing this makes Xiaobo angry, saying that he's only alive because everyone else is doing the heavy work, as all he's done so far are a few weak mental attacks. Gong observes this and thinks that the MC must have some trump card, since it doesn't make sense for him to have reached the second order with just the little he's shown, and maybe that trump card can be used once or twice, thinking it's good if it's really true. With that, the fourth wave begins, And now, there are 400 zombies at the peak of the second order, along with other mutants of level 1 and 2. Song calls his friend to focus on the Zombie King, while asking the others to focus on the howling demons. However, right at the start of the battle, he gets hit and thrown away, leaving the archer scared as his friend was struck so easily. The monsters begin attacking frantically, hitting another boy who was distracted. A lancer runs full speed and hits a mutant, which spits out blue slime in his direction, causing him to burn. Xiaobo screams for his friend and fires his ice spikes, but he laments as the monsters are too fast. And with Huang's death and his colleagues being seriously wounded, he imagines it's the end for them. The MC observes this and realizes that at the pace they're going, they won't be able to reach the 6th wave. And if that happens, he won't be able to use his trump card. He sees a monster exploding the blue slime on Xiaobo and, at high speed, saves him. Then, he uses his telekinesis and throws a psychic dagger at the mutant, which hits its body, curves, and explodes the monster's head. The boy is shocked seeing this, as someone he called useless easily took down a level 2 mutant and thanks him for the help. Yenning tells him not to worry, but asks him to be careful with what he says from that moment on. He begins finishing off the zombies one by one, asking everyone to focus, as they will be able to deal with the Devourer right after. Linlan doesn't hide her surprised expression, as she didn't know that Yenning still had cards up his sleeve, also noticing the blue equipment he has. And that's why it's no surprise he dared to show up there. His subordinate approaches and asks if they should kill Yenning immediately, but she asks not to worry, since there are only a few of them, and they can take care of him in the next round, then asks them to stay calm, as the telekinesis technique they saw him using must be all he has, so they will only need to focus on the peaks of level 2. Half an hour later, it's announced that the 4th wave has been completed, and in 3 minutes, the 5th wave will begin. Song worries about the situation, saying that, unfortunately, they have already lost a close combat fighter and a ranged fighter, without mentioning that another is severely injured and is currently saving 2 powerful abilities, but will have to keep them for the 6th wave. Lin Teng says the same, and asks them to stay alert for when Linlan decides to make a move, as they will need to combine their strength if they want to have any chance against her. At the same time, they look at the MC, saying they are impressed, since, as far as they know, mental awakened ones need to rest after each attack. But the MC keeps attacking continuously, and because of that, they are expecting him to have some tricks up his sleeve for the next wave. It's announced that the 5th wave will begin with 500 zombies, 2 level 2 peaks, 3 level 2 mutants, and 8 first-order mutants. Immediately, one of the monsters attacks a lancer, and the MC watches his allies get captured. Thinking it's a drag since there's a giant centipede there, he decides to attack but sees it doesn't work. Though he already expected this, since giant mutants are hard to deal with without using powerful abilities, and it would take an eternity to find the weak spot attacking this way. Song and Lin Teng find themselves surrounded, and that's when the Warhammer warns that, unfortunately, they will need to use whatever they have left, as they're running out of options. Immediately, the archer launches his powerful ice arrow, while Song charges in with his spiritual hammer. Linlin, watching from afar, finds it amusing to see the awakened ones conserving energy, thinking they will survive, and then accuses them of being even dumber than they seem. Suddenly, the centipede moves at high speed toward the MC's back and tries to devour him with everything, even destroying the ground. The team panics, thinking they're too late, but then he appears, exploding the monster without a single injury. The two are stunned seeing this, as well as the girl, who can't believe the boy still had another trick up his sleeve. The battle continues, with the archer shooting arrows at the zombie spider, while the Warhammer rushes to help. Meanwhile, the MC is running across the monster's body until he jumps toward its head, as he found the weak spot. Because of this, he attacks the monster's head with everything using his telekinetic piercing. The attack begins to pierce with full force until Yenning prepares his fist and lands a punch, causing a devastating destruction all around. People are in shock seeing this, especially the archer, who can't believe that Yenning managed to defeat a high-level monster alone, since they only managed it because they attacked all at once. Linlan, on the other hand, is pleased to see a beginner mental awakened with 2 blue equipment, and because of that, she tells her subordinates that in the next wave, they will attack and warns them not to kill Yenning all at once. Just break his arms and legs so she can torture him. Song tells his friend that unfortunately, it will be just the 3 of them, and in the next wave, Linlan's team will appear, and that's when they'll have to make their move. Then, the 6th wave begins with 3 monsters at the peak of the 2nd order and other level 2 monsters. The girl decides to join the fun, asking everyone to give their best. She starts by defeating 2 monsters with extreme ease, while saying that if everyone can hold on until the end and give the spoils, she will let them live. She then moves on to her new target, the Berserker at the peak of level 2. The mutant raises his sword and tries to strike her, but she, in addition to dodging, raises her foot and lands a blow with all her strength, destroying the monster along with the ground. Suddenly, one of the monsters arrives behind her to devour her, but at the last second, she activates her blood shield. The MC, watching this, notices that she is a double awakened with agility and strength, using speed boosts in addition to damage and defense buffs. And he is also aware that these are only the abilities she has shown, as she probably has many tricks up her sleeve. Song and Lin Teng continue distracting the bloodthirsty butcher until they realize that Linlan has defeated a monster and is heading to help them. She is already approaching with a flying kick on the monster, and immediately the archer uses his trump card, shooting his flaming spiritual arrow at her, while his partner has his shield activated to protect himself. The MC looks back and doesn't like this at all, as the 2 are acting too early, and he is sure that Linlan wouldn't fall for such an obvious trap. He thinks this, and the shot causes a colossal explosion, but the archer looks shocked as it was his friend who got hit. Linlan asks if they were really so foolish to think she wouldn't foresee something like this. Yenning keeps watching to see if she swapped places with Song using some kind of damage transfer skill or something like that. She, on the other hand, is furious, as she had to use the trump card she had, and so she goes for an attack on Lin Teng, landing a punch squarely in his stomach and then starts stepping on his arm, warning him that she will break everything so he can't retaliate. She tells her subordinates that she will deal with the zombie golems while they collect the spoils. One of the awakened points his needle at the archer's eye, demanding that he hand over the equipment and credits, and if he refuses, they will beg to be dead. Another does the same to Song, who is desperate seeing the situation he is in. At this moment, the MC starts begging them not to torture him. A thug approaches and says that he is very clever, but he regrets it because the boss gave clear orders to leave him paralyzed. He asks to wait, as if they paralyze him, it will be impossible to transfer the credits. He says this, thinking the next wave is approaching and that he needs to buy as much time as possible until then. He barely thinks this when a notification pops up saying that the 6th wave has been completed and informs that all participants can vote to leave or enter the 7th wave, the final battle. Immediately, the MC takes out the thug in front of him since it's showtime and requests entry into the 7th wave on the maximum difficulty. He knows that this is something few people know, but if he chooses the maximum difficulty, there's no need for a majority vote, and the dungeon will continue. With that, it is announced that one participant voted to proceed to the next stage and asks everyone to prepare for the 7th wave on the maximum difficulty. All the enemies panic since they didn't even have time to loot the place, and they don't understand how they went to the 7th wave without the majority voting for it. To make matters worse, the mutants will be at the peak of the 3rd order, something that even their boss can't handle. Song bursts out laughing, saying this is karma, and that now they will all die together. Linlan becomes furious, asking if this was his doing, and she charges toward him, saying she will kill him. At that moment, a colossal mutant bursts from the ground and stands before her. Meanwhile, the telekinesis attack starts defeating the thugs with the archer and the warhammer. Yenning shouts, asking if both Song and Lin Teng can hear her, and if they can, they should run as fast and as far as they can. The 2 immediately pay attention, as, although they don't know what's happening, it seems there is some kind of plan going on. At this moment, the MC summons his sword, warning that maybe Linlin doesn't know. But the third-order mutants have considerable spiritual intelligence, unlike the others, as they are experts and love killing high-level awakened ones like her. The boss heads toward the girl, but she immediately uses her swap position skill with her thug on the ground, who is devoured in a single blow since he was in the place of the attack. The MC is up high along with his two allies, understanding better how the girl's ability works, which allows her to swap positions with a target. But apparently, the distance is limited. The boss appears immediately behind Linlin, who manages to dodge being devoured, but still gets hit directly by the monster's body, making her vomit blood right away. At the same time, the MC prepares to attack since his golden opportunity has appeared, and thus activates his storm sword, creating dozens of attacks in a giant area. Linlin is terrified seeing this attack, as it is on a completely different level than a third-order mutant, and wonders if there's another third-order awakened hidden somewhere in the dungeon, like her. The attack is so devastating that it tears the boss apart instantly, while she focuses solely on activating her defense magic, as the range of the ability she's witnessing is absolutely overwhelming. After this absolute attack, a notification announces that the Death Factory has been cleared and everyone will be exiting the dungeon in 5 minutes. Yening watches the dust settle as the strike is still ongoing, while Gong and Lin Teng can't hide their surprised expressions, having witnessed a strike that easily defeated a third-order awakened, and they can't understand whether the MC is someone of a mid-tier third level or even a superior third level. At this moment, Yening wonders if there's another life sign on the ground and wonders if the girl survived. Because of this, he uses his psychic detection, and indeed, Linlan is alive, with an aura acting as a shield. She gets scared as a dagger is heading toward her and panics, wondering if all that powerful attack was caused by Yening. Only then does he notice she's wearing some kind of protective gear, but he decides to attack anyway, though he begins to realize he doesn't have enough power to break through, so he decides to pierce this shield. She feels relieved she invested so much in a rank A passive defense item. The MC decides to attack personally since his telekinesis attacks aren't having any effect, until the girl notices him approaching and asks if he's really the hidden third order awakened. He gets close, already delivering a powerful strike with his sword, but realizes it's still not enough to break through the barrier. Linlin, irritated, simply deactivates her barrier and asks him to kill her already instead of continuing to humiliate her this way. He finds this strange, as she thinks he's humiliating her instead of not being able to kill her, and he's pleased by that, as in other words, she hates humiliation more than death itself. So he decides to play along, starting by placing his finger on her face, warning her that if she didn't want to be humiliated, she shouldn't have tortured the awakened like she did, and warns her that he hasn't even shown her real humiliation yet. She, desperate, asks what she should do for him to kill her already. The MC, with his malicious gaze, warns her that all she has to do is do what she's wanted from the beginning, hand over all the equipment she has, along with all her credit points. Linlin asks if she can really trust him, but he begins to caress her body, making her feel more and more embarrassed, to the point of giving him everything he asked for. A notification announces the start of a trade, beginning with the Blood Spirit Flower, which is rank blue. Next, she trades the Ice Flame Gauntlets, which are also rank blue. Finally, she sends a Paralyzing Flower of rank blue and 13,000 credit points. He is surprised, as apparently, she's wealthy enough to have so many credit points, and concludes that looting other awakened is the fastest way to earn money. Linlin warns that she has given him everything she had, and asks him to kill her already. However, he doesn't let it slide, and tries to take even more from her. So, he grabs her arm and pins her to the ground, making it clear that she shouldn't blame him for what's going to happen if she doesn't give him everything she has. She continues to curse, telling him she has nothing left, and even dares him to try something. Realizing she truly has nothing left, he gets up, lamenting that all he managed to take was just that. Linlan starts asking why he stopped and if he's afraid. Only then does she realize that at no point did she try to kill her or even laid a finger on her, coming to the conclusion that the devastating attack can only be used once, and that he is not, in fact, a level 2 awakened who lacks the attacking power to break her defense. She thinks about this, but the countdown to leave the dungeon is already at 10 seconds. She stands up, thinking she's stupid, and with an angry look, asks if his name is really Yellen, warning that she will never forget this name and will find him no matter where he hides, since when she finds him, she'll tear him to pieces. The MC finds it hilarious that she thinks his name is Yellen, because when she discovers that it's actually Yenning, she'll realize who will be hunting who. With that, the dungeon is completed, and when calculating the results, it's reported that Yening was the one who finished the dungeon, earning an S rank for the completion rate, plus a standard bonus, and the bonus for defeating the boss. One of his rewards was obtaining psychic experience, which was increased by 100% for defeating a high-level boss. Additionally, he got 2 white equipment and 1 blue, 3 white items and 2 other materials, 1 white and 1 blue. He also gained a free status point, along with the hidden blue title, the Guardian of the Factory, which increases 1 point in all attributes when participating in war-type dungeons. He is happy with the result, since if he combines everything he got from the dungeon and from Linlin, he will be able to sell it all, and buy plenty of psychic fruits, pushing his attributes to 25. After leaving the dungeon, he gets on his bike and starts riding through the city, thinking he should head to an inn in Zhenjiang to practice the B-rank sword skill he obtained the other day, and then, only the next day, go to the Lost Battlefield to get some equipment and adapt to the zombie hordes. At that moment, someone appears in the middle of the street asking for help. Yenning stops his bike, and the guy begs him to help turn over the car that had flipped on the street. The MC observes more closely until a few people approach and launch an attack, demanding the credit points and items. Yenning, without much patience, takes them out one by one until the first one tries to flee, but it's useless since the MC's dagger flies with telekinesis and strikes the thief's foot, causing him to fall face first to the ground. He finds it strange since the cut doesn't bleed and tries to understand whether the person in front of him isn't human, nor a zombie, nor even a mutant. The man gets up, crying, begging for his life, and tells him that he knows where everyone's equipment is and will tell everything. Yenning just grabs his clothes and pulls him closer, asking who the hell he actually is. That's all, folks. If you enjoy the video, subscribe and hit the bell. Thanks.